Night approached swiftly in the wastes, the wan sun retreating like a defeated army. Without his mount, Silver was forced to move more cautiously through the corrupted landscape. The loss of his companion weighed heavily, each step a reminder of the price this cursed land demanded. The patterns on his skin shifted with each passing hour, spreading slowly up his arms and across his chest. They held an alien beauty, intricate designs of pure darkness that seemed to move with his muscles. Yet unlike the corruption that had claimed his mount, these changes felt almost natural. As if the shadows were adapting to him rather than trying to possess him. His Rosser blade had changed as well. The once bright metal now drank in light, and shadows clung to its edge like eager servants. When he swung it experimentally, the darkness followed its arc, giving substance to the very air it cut through. The weapon's weight remained the same, but its nature had fundamentally altered, no longer purely a tool of high elven craft, but something new. Something that straddled the boundary between light and shadow. A distant howl caught his attention, similar to the sounds he'd heard earlier, but deeper, more primal. The acoustics of the wastes made it difficult to judge distance or direction. He needed shelter, and soon. The landscape offered little in the way of natural refuge. Twisted trees grew at impossible angles, their bark resembling flayed skin. The ground itself seemed to pulse with corrupt energy, iridescent pools forming and dissolving at random. But ahead, barely visible in the failing light, he spotted what appeared to be the ruins of an ancient structure. As he drew closer, the architecture became clearer and more disturbing. The building's original purpose was impossible to determine, its walls warped by centuries of exposure to corruption. What might once have been clean stone lines now curved and twisted like frozen smoke. Yet the structure remained solid, its foundations reaching deep into the corrupted earth. The entrance was a jagged tear in the reality-warped stone. Silver approached cautiously, the Rosser blade held ready. The shadows marking his flesh seemed to react to the proximity of the ruins, their patterns growing more complex, more deliberate. Inside, the corruption had transformed the interior into a maze of organic-looking corridors. The walls pulsed softly with their own inner light, casting everything in a sickly glow. But the space was defensible only one way in, and the corrupted stone seemed stable enough despite its unsettling appearance. He was setting up a basic camp when he heard movement in the deeper shadows of the ruins. Something large was approaching, its footsteps echoing strangely through the twisted corridors. The sound was accompanied by a scraping, as if whatever moved out there was dragging something heavy behind it. Silver positioned himself with his back to the most solid-looking wall, the changed Rosser blade held ready. The shadows marked into his flesh seemed to ripple with anticipation, and he felt power building in ways he didn't yet understand. Whatever approached, he would face it on his feet, with steel in his hand and 3,000 years of training behind him. The thing that emerged from the darkness was once human, or at least humanoid. Corruption had transformed it into something that defied easy description. Its flesh had the same iridescent quality as the pools outside, and crystal growths erupted from its joints like terrible jewelry. But its eyes held intelligence. And hunger. "You trespass," the creature said, its voice a wet rasp that echoed wrongly off the corrupt walls. "This place is claimed." Silver held his ground, noting how the shadows marked into his flesh seemed to react to the creature's presence. "I seek only shelter for the night. I'll be gone by morning." The thing laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Morning? There's no morning here, High Elf. Only degrees of darkness." It moved closer, crystal growths catching the sickly light. "You're marked by Valkyr. Recently. I can smell his touch on you." "The demon's touch is only skin deep," Silver replied, his blade tracking the creature's movement. "My mind remains my own. For now." The creature circled him, dragging what he now saw was a crystallized leg, fused at awkward angles. "But the changes, they come whether we will them or not. I was like you once. Proud. Resistant." It gestured to its transformed body. "Now I am enlightened." The shadows beneath Silver's skin pulsed, responding to some unseen power. The Rosser blade grew heavier in his hand, as if eager to test its changed nature. I have no interest in your enlightenment. Yet you wield shadow already, the creature noted, pointing at his sword. Your blade drinks the darkness. Your flesh accepts his marks. Why resist what comes naturally? There is nothing natural about corruption. No? The creature's crystalline joints creaked as it moved. What is nature but endless change? What is life but transformation? It lunged suddenly, faster than its awkward form suggested possible. Silver's blade met the attack, shadows flowing from its edge like water. Where the darkness touched the creature's corrupt flesh, it left marks similar to those on Silver's own skin. The thing howled, not in pain, but in ecstasy. Yes, it shrieked. You see? The power flows through you. Embrace it. Instead, Silver pressed his attack. 3,000 years of training guided his blade in perfect arcs, each strike leaving trails of solid shadow in its wake. The creature met him with corrupt strength, its crystallized limbs surprisingly effective weapons. They fought through the twisted corridors, shadows and corruption swirling around them. Each clash sent resonant sounds echoing through the ruins, as if the very structure responded to their battle. The patterns on Silver's skin grew more pronounced with each exchange, but his mind remained clear, his purpose unchanged. The end came suddenly. The creature, overconfident in its corrupt strength, overextended. The Rosser blade struck true, but instead of cutting flesh, it seemed to slice through reality itself. Shadows poured from the wound, and the creature's form began to unravel. Thank you, it whispered as its body dissolved. I had forgotten what it was to fight with purpose. Then it was gone, leaving nothing but corrupt crystals and shadow-marked stone. Silver stood in the sudden silence, feeling the changes in his flesh, in his blade, in the very air around him. He was transforming, yes, but on his own terms. The shadows served him, not the other way around. He made camp in the chamber, using the creature's crystals to form barriers at the entrance. As he settled in for what passed as night in the wastes, he studied the patterns of darkness that now covered most of his arms and chest. They held power, he could feel it. Not the mindless corruption of Valkyr, but something else. Something he might be able to use. The Rosser blade lay across his lap, its changed metal still humming with shadow energy. His mount's death, this battle, they were only the beginning. But he would face what came with the same determination that had carried him through 3,000 years of life. The darkness might mark him, might change him, but it would never own him. His last thought before sleep took him was of Elena, and the communication crystal hidden safely away. Once he learned to control these changes, to master this new power, perhaps then he could risk sending her a message. Let her know that though he was transformed, he was not lost. The deep night brought new understanding. As Silver drifted in that space between waking and dreams, he felt the shadows stir around him. They moved with purpose now, responding to his unconscious thoughts. In the darkness, he began to see their true nature, not corrupt, but primordial. Not evil, but raw potential. The patterns etched into his flesh pulsed with each breath, and in that rhythm he found revelation. The shadows weren't trying to corrupt him, they were offering themselves as tools. Like the high elven magic he'd known for millennia, this power required will and discipline. The difference was merely in its nature. Where elven magic shaped light and crystal, this force commanded darkness itself. He woke fully to find the shadows in the chamber had gathered around him like a cloak. The Rosser blade gleamed with new purpose, its transformed metal now a perfect conduit for this primordial force. When he moved, the darkness moved with him, no longer marking him but responding to him. A noise from deeper in the ruins caught his attention, something large moving through the twisted corridors. But now, with this new understanding, Silver didn't reach for his sword. Instead, he reached out with his will, commanding the shadows to show him what approached. The darkness flowed like water, extending his senses down the corrupted halls. He saw through the shadows themselves a pack of corrupted wolves, their flesh crystallized and twisted, hunting through the ruins. They moved with coordinated purpose, suggesting intelligence guided by madness. perfect for testing his emerging understanding. Silver rose silently, the shadows clinging to him like armor. The Rosser blade hung at his hip, but he left it sheathed. This battle would be fought with his new powers alone. As the pack rounded the corner into his chamber, Silver struck. The shadows responded to his will, solidifying into spears of pure darkness that pinned the lead wolves to the corrupt walls. The remaining beasts charged, but now he moved with new confidence. Each gesture commanded darkness itself, shaping it into barriers, weapons, extensions of his will. The wolves' corrupted flesh offered no defense against shadow-forged weapons. Where normal steel might have shattered against their crystalline growths, these dark blades passed through as if the mutations weren't there. One by one, the pack fell to his newly mastered power. When it was done, when the last corrupt wolf lay dead, Silver examined his handiwork. The shadows had responded perfectly to his commands, manifesting exactly as he willed them. More importantly, using this power felt right. Not like corruption taking hold, but like awakening something that had always been there. Not corruption, he said aloud, watching the shadows dance around his fingers. Evolution. The night wasn't over yet. There would be time to experiment further, to push the boundaries of this new power. By dawn, if dawn still held meaning here, he would better understand what he was becoming. Not a corrupt thing, but something new. Something that could perhaps bridge the gap between light and shadow. And then he would begin his true journey through the wastes.